Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Sir?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon,
Okay, let's start.
sir.
The attendance is ongoing.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes. The attendance is ongoing. It is automatically updating. And then we will discuss now the
Okay po,
lesson.
sir.
Okay.
Okay
If you
po,
have
sir.
if you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask and raise that during our question and answer portion right after the discussion. Again, if you have questions, kindly take note of that and then raise the questions later after the discussion.
Yes po, sir.
Yes po, sir.
Yes po, sir.
By the way, I am recording the lecture kasi baka pwede nyo balikan later no at hindi klaro. So you can I will upload the recorded video after the discussion.
Okay po, sir.
Okay, for this afternoon, the discussion is quite uncommon because remember the subject is CPE 107 Technology for Teaching and Learning, and previous topics we had about the concept of ICT, basic terms and definitions of the different terms na gagamitin when we discuss about technology in teaching and learning. And previous lesson we had is was all about ICT issues, no? About privacy and so on. So the issues about concerning technology and how it affects or what is the effect of that to our teachers and to the teachers. So now since the technically lesson planning is not really included sa discussion when it comes to CP 107, no, during the old core or old curriculum prior to this curriculum, meron tayong separate discussion really on lesson planning. Ang subject na to or the subject before was, I think that is principles of teaching. Sa bagong curriculum kasi ngayon, wala nang tinatawag na principles of teaching. So, ang ginawa na pag-decidean sa department that lesson planning should be injected sa CPE 107 para naman magamit siya sa iba pang subjects no hindi naman late na i-discuss yung lesson planning. Okay. So this is a different topic, no? Medyo labas siya sa tinatawag natin na technology for teaching and learning. But then again, lesson planning is still essential. It is because lesson planning perhaps is the center of the teaching and learning process. No? Ito yung gagamitin ng teacher para makapagturo, the so-called lesson planning. Okay, let's have here the section one parts of a lesson plan. We do have different parts of lesson plan. We do have different types of lesson plan. And ang purpose lang ng discussion na to, because you may perhaps encounter a teacher wherein mag-present siya ng another format of lesson plan. The purpose of this discussion is for you to understand what is really the content of the lesson plan and what are the basic requirements or the basic components of your lesson plan. Okay? Kasi I'm sure yung ibang teachers, they will also present different type of another type of or another format of lesson plan. But anyway, the department, the Department of Secondary Teaching, the whole College of Education, we're actually planning on drafting or developing a unified lesson plan na pwedeng magamit sa lahat, and then yun na talaga yung format. Supposedly, gagawin namin yan. It's just that we had this accreditation, so we really don't have a luxury of time to discuss it and then of course draft the lesson plan. So ang gagawin natin dito is I just have to deliver kung ano yung natutunan kong lesson plan way back na natuturo ako sa IIT, no? And then of course during my undergrad years. So and then I will show you the basic components of this lesson plan. Okay, so what is now the importance of instructional or lesson plan? By the way, again, the other term of lesson plan is instructional plan. According to the first bullet, no instructional plan is magical elixir that will guarantee 100% learning. I'm sure you are very familiar with the term elixir. Kasi yung elixir, nagagamit yan sa mga online games, no? Wherein siguro yung elixir naglalabas siya ng gold, ng coins, or whatsoever. Okay. Sabi dito, your lesson plan will not guarantee 100% learning. Okay? Since your lesson plan is just a plan, no? Yung plano lang ng teacher. By the way, sa mga architect siguro, and then siguro sa mga engineers, meron silang tinatawag na blueprint, no? By the time they will be constructing a building, for example, meron yung silang tinatawag na blueprint. Sa blueprint, doon makikita yung plano, kung ano yung design, for example, or backbone ng bahay, yung measurement nandoon din. So mean to say the plan of the construction nandoon. So for the teachers or also lesson plan is considered to be the blueprint of teachers. The blueprint of deliver instruction. Kasi nga yung teachers hindi siya makapagturo for the basic ed. Let's try to look at the perspective of the basic education kung wala talagang lesson plan. So kailangan pagplanuhan para alam ni teacher kung ano yung gagawin by the time papasok siya sa klase. A written instructional plan is an antidote to aimlessness. So, bali yung written instructional plan, this is now the answer for those teacher na hindi alam kung anong gagawin sa klase. For those teacher na parang papasok lang ng klase at saka lalabas ulit. Parang yung teacher na murarag mulabay, no? Nga walay plano kung ano yung dapat gagawin. So this is now the antidote to those teachers who has these characteristics of aimlessness. So this is now your plan. It prevents us from becoming like a classroom driftwood that is merely tossed by the winds and the waves of our whims and caprices. I mean, ibig sabihin, hindi lang go with the flow si teacher. Kasi kung hindi mo alam yung pinapasok mo, parang go with the flow ka lang. So lesson planning here is the answer to that aimlessness. Now let's try to look at the elements of an instructional or lesson plan. So the components that I will be presenting you here are the basic or the minimum requirement of the lesson plan. Pag ibig sabihin ng minimum requirement, because you can add up kasi minimum requirement lang siya. Okay, so the first one is your objectives. Yes. The second one is a topic or subject matter. Number 3, materials. Number 4, your procedure or lesson development. Kung ano yung mangyayari sa buong klase mo. So, i-detalye mo dyan sa number 4. Number 5, evaluation. Kung ano yung gagawin mo, magpa-quiz ka or whatever. And then, of course, assignments. So, this is the basic flow sa or components of your lesson plan. Kaya nga, kung ma-remember siguro ninyo during your undergrad or your basic education years, you would notice na right after talaga ng lesson, may bibigay talaga ng assignment si teacher. Because that is part of his or her lesson, part of his or her plan, no, to do that. Okay, so let's try to look at a sample lesson plan. Okay, and let's try to look at the components of it, and then I will discuss the components of the lesson plan. So as of the for the meantime, papakita ko muna sa inyo kung ano yung mukha ng lesson plan. This one is an example of a detailed lesson plan, no? Yan, naka-detailed lesson plan siya. This is a detailed lesson. Anyway, I will discuss another type of lesson plan later, other format. Ito yung, I think, yeah, ito yung ginamit ko during my application sa Dapitan City National High School. I told you that right after teaching 7 years in MSUIT, I napadpad ako sa Dipolog City wherein I taught PSI students. I taught Philippine Science High School, and then right after that, right after a year, I applied to the Pitan City National High School. So ito yung ginamit ko during my application. So during my demonstration. So my topic is all about Mendel's laws of inheritance. So ang format, not really the strict format kasi nga may ibang teachers talaga na iba talaga yung format nila, no? So ang gusto ko lang makuha ninyo dito is intindihin kung ano yung laman ng lesson plan, because if you could really understand the content of your lesson plan, kahit anong format man ang ibigay ng iba't ibang teacher, ay alam niyo kung ano dapat yung ilagay sa lesson plan niyo. Okay. So of course, I have here a detailed lesson plan for para kayong estudyante, grade 12 students, pangalan ng eskwelahan at saka yung topic. Okay. And then learning competency, itong learning competency na ito, children, kinuha ko ito sa Science Curriculum Guide. I do not know kung naka-upload na ba ako sa classroom ng different curriculum guide though, but doon ko siya kinuha. Okay. Learning competency. Sir, bakit po may learning competency? Wala po kaming nakitang learning competency doon sa pinakita mong parts or components ng lesson plan. Sabi ko nga, yung nakasaad doon ay tinatawag nating minimum requirements, meaning to say, pwede nating dagdagan yon, no, kung pwede. So we have here learning competency wherein makikita natin ito sa Science Curriculum Guide. Okay? So according to that part, the learners predict genotypes and phenotypes of parents and offspring using the laws of inheritance. So, ang gagawin natin dito, children, huhugot tayo or kukuha tayo ng idea from this learning competency, and we will create learning objectives. Kaya nakagawa ako ng learning objectives. Kung titingnan ninyo, yung learning objectives na yan ay nanggaling sa learning competency. Anyway, I understand that hindi siguro nyo gaano ma-decipher yung learning competency, especially for those not biology major, no, but siguro sa field ninyo, kaya nyo siyang intindihin, okay? So, kinuha natin yung learning objectives from this statement, from that learning competency. Therefore, then, we will start writing Roman numeral 1, and we will label numeral 1 as your learning objectives. So, ang nalagay lang doon, objectives. Bakit may learning pa? Okay, nilagyan, binago. Okay? Learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students should be able to, yan. So, these are your components. Anyway, we will be discussing this theory later. And then for the second, for the Roman numeral number 2, we have here learning content, children. Yung learning content na sinasabi, ayun yung part ng subject matter or content or topic. Okay. Ang ginawa dito, since this is a detailed lesson plan, ang ginawa ko lang, inartihan ko pa, okay, nilagyan ko pa siya ng different components. So for learning content, meron akong A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. No? So for letter A, meron akong topic, ano yung topic na i-discuss ko. Letter B for the time allotment, no? Technically, ang lalabas dito, dapat, yung lesson plan kasi, hindi ka pwedeng gumawa. Siguro pwede naman. But then again, a lesson plan should only cover dapat one period. So make sure to make a lesson which is good for 60 minutes or for one period. Okay. And then of course you have to write the references here. This is in APA format. So sulat nyo dyan. And then materials. So ano po ibig sabihin ng materials? Ito yung mga gagamitin mo during your klase. No? During the discussion of this topic. So ito yung gagamitin mo lahat. So isulat mo kung ano yung gagamitin mo, PowerPoint presentation, ano pa ba? Meron kang pa-film ka, so lagay mo ng film, video presentation, and so on. Okay. And then next, for skills naman, yung skills na gusto mong makuha ng mga estudyante or matutunan ng mga estudyante at the end of your discussion. Dito, gusto ko na mag-describe sila. Therefore, the skill is describing. Okay? Gusto ko na i-apply nila or mag-solve sila, for example. Therefore, I can write here, applying or solving. Okay? So, sir, pwede pong describe, pwede pong apply now because skills naka-ing po, no? And then, right after that is the concept. Nilagyan ko lang siya ng science concept again because this is a science subject. But you can actually write only concept, no? So ano po yung nakapaloob sa concept na part? Ang susulat niyo dito is yung ano yung buod or ano yung gist of your lesson. So for example, your lesson is all about subtraction. So siguro pwede kang sumulat dito ng isang paragraph about subtraction or mga 3 to 5 sentences about subtraction or mga 3 sentences about subtraction. Okay? Anyway, basta about concept na siya. So another example siguro if your lesson is all about planets, no, sa solar system, so you can write planets here about the 8 planets of the solar system. Okay. Next we have Values integration. So I have here 3 values integration. If you have skills na gusto ninyong matutunan ng mga estudyante ninyo at gusto ninyong i-deliver during your lesson, meron din tayong values to be integrated during your lesson. So this is the values that secretly you integrate to your lesson and gusto mong matutunan ito ng mga estudyante along the way. So my lesson is all about probably this is about kung ano ba yung mangyayari kung yung mata ng male is pink and then yung mata ng female is yellow, for example. So anong kalabasan? Pink o yellow. Hindi natin alam kung ano ba yung color combination. So parang ganyan, no? That is why may values integration na gagamitin. Respect all aspects of individuality. Yes. And then, of course, since I will be mentioning perhaps scientists, biologists here, so recognize achievements of biologists. And then, of course, since I am talking about differences, now the reason why meron tayong iba't ibang mukha, the differences on the physical structure. So, ang gagawin ko dito, become aware and appreciate similarities and differences among organisms. Okay, so these are the values that I will be integrating during my discussion, and I want my students to learn these values. Okay, kasi nga, especially for the basic education now, ang requirement since the needs of the students, no, the needs of the students are now changing. Therefore, the teachers should also change. No? Conform po sila kung ano yung pagbabago ng mga estudyante. Now, for the 21st century classroom, for the 21st century learners, kailangan talaga nating i-mold yung mga estudyante not just on the brain part, but also to the whole as a person. Yun yung goal natin. Dapat yung estudyante magiging produkto natin is intelligent, perhaps beautiful inside and out, and then the other one is very skillful, parang ganyan. Dili lang pwede nga gwapa lang ka or gwapo, dayon digto dapita sa utok mo nagwaag yun, no? Kana siya. Or bright tuod ka pero ay mo batasan ngilad, di makaunog ilo. So murag dili pud siya maayo. So that is why the goal of the basic education now is a holistic na approach. Holistic approach para holistic pod yung magiging produkto ng graduates natin, no? So this is now the parts wherein meron tayong Third Roman numeral is for learning procedure. Nasabi ko yan doon sa part ng procedure. Ang mangyayari dito, children, may kaibahan ito sa ibang format ng lesson plan. When it comes to detailed lesson plan, nakadetalye talaga siya para siyang script, no? Meron kang two columns. The first column is for teachers activity, and then the second column is for students activity. So, ang mangyayari dito, nakasaad dito kung ano yung sasabihin mo, expected na responses sa mga estudyante and so on. So, nakadetalye siya lahat dito. Okay? So, this is your detailed lesson plan. And then, the fourth Roman numeral is for application or valuing. Now, I think for those mga estudyante na siguro nakapag-undergo na ng lesson planning for other subject, you will find it somewhat different sa ibang teachers, no? But when we say kasi application, this is not the application na mag-quiz kayo or mag-activity. When we say application, this is the part of the lesson plan wherein you have to write kung ano yung importansya or what is the application of your topic to the real world. So for example, your lesson is all about multiplication, siguro ang magbibigay ka ng salita dito or words or situation wherein magagamit ang multiplication in real life. For example, bibili ka. May multiplication dyan. So, you have to write it here. Kasi nga, kailangang malaman ng mga estudyante, by the way, according to research, isa sa factor why students really don't understand lessons or why students meron silang less interest to your topic is because you discuss the lesson in an abstract way. Ibig sabihin, palagi ka na nagsasalita ng technical definitions, hindi mo man yan binigyan ng real life situation. That is why in every topics that we have to discuss, we really have to connect it to the real world. What is the importance of this lesson to the real life scenario? Okay? What is the importance of discussing lesson plan to your life? What is the importance of discussing money or discussing about profit with your life? No? So dapat makita na may estudyante ang connection of the topic of the discussion of your discussion to the real world. And that's the time that the students perhaps could get more interest to your topic, and of course they will be motivated. So this is now the part where you have to write the connection of your topic to the real world. Next, of course, the assessment or evaluation. Very short quiz. Pa-short quiz na siya, children, ha? Basig mag-lesson mo og multiplication, din ang inyong karong problem sa multiplication, maabot og 50 items. No? So, niulbo ang kaspas imong mga estudyante. So, this is actually a very, very, very short quiz lang. No? So, kung ma-remember ninyo, nung high school pa kayo, even elementary, di ba, sabi ni teacher, okay, we will be having a short quiz right after the discussion. Okay. Magpa-short quiz si teacher. Mingo din siya, okay, if you don't have any questions, please get 1/8 or 1/4 sheet of paper and number your paper from 1 to 10. Aman din si teacher. No? So, mubo ra kayo siya. This is actually type of formative assessment. And then, of course, ang pinakalas, mingo din si teacher, okay, write your assignment copy your assignment in your notebook and then submit this next meeting. Parang ganyan. Okay? So those are the basic components of your lesson plan. Anyway, I will discuss the specific structure of your lesson plan later. Okay. Again, if you have questions, please write it down. You can actually write it or type it in our chat box or in a blank sheet of paper, and then please erase that after the discussion. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation. So again, those are the essential elements of an instructional or lesson plan. Next, children, is all about instructional learning process. Okay, titingnan natin dito yung part ng learning objectives sa lesson plan. Okay, learning objectives. Okay, we have here the On the other side of the screen, below you, the learning objectives, meron tayong dyang smart, no? Ang smart na nandyan, I am not referring to cellular network, no? Baka kasi nagiging commercial ito, no? So wala. So when we say smart children, this is the characteristics of your learning objective. Yung learning objective ninyo na nakikita ninyo kanina sa lesson plan, it should be smart. Okay. Hindi intelligent, no? Hindi naman siya intelligent. But then again, when we say smart, S is for specific. Specific talaga siya dapat, no? Meaning to say, out of the broad learning objective, kailangan mong mag-construct ng learning objective that is very specific, no? The more specific the objective, the more siya na attainable. The more din siya na magiging possible for you to execute in the class. No? So in a way, S is for specific, M is for measurable. So what do you mean by measurable? My only thinking during my undergrad years para alam ko kung yung ginawa kong learning objective is measurable or not. Okay. Pag sinabing measurable yung tinatawag nating learning objective, it can be tested. So ano pong ibig sabihin ng tested? Pwede itong gawan ni teacher ng isang quiz. No? Kaya ni teacher magawa ng quiz. If yung learning objective, coming from that learning objective, kayang gawa ni teacher ng quiz at masagutan ng estudyante, that's the time that the learning objective is measurable. Okay. Example. Ang example scenario is sige, balik tayo sa tawag natin na ang topic natin is photosynthesis. Sige, bugbog na yung photosynthesis. Si photosynthesis ang lesson. Of course, marami tayong dapat malaman about photosynthesis children, no? Perhaps we wanted to know what is the definition of photosynthesis. Okay? We wanted to know kung ano yung mechanism, no? Paano nangyayari yung tinatawag natin na photosynthesis, meant to say the processes, no? So marami. And then, ang gusto nating malaman dito is specific mo, no? So ito yung learning objective na ginawa ni teacher. At the end of the lesson, the students should be able to enumerate the processes of photosynthesis. So yun yung learning objective ni teacher. Again, listen. At the end of the lesson, the students should be able to enumerate the processes of photosynthesis. Now, I need somebody sa klaseng ito kung ano yung pwedeng gawing test ni teacher or ano yung expected na test na gagawin ni teacher sa learning objective na ginawa ni teacher. You just have to turn on your your microphone and then you can talk. What do you think is the type of test na ipapagawa ni teacher sa learning objective na ginawa niya? Again, the learning objective is at the end of the lesson, the students should be able to enumerate the processes of photosynthesis. So ano yung expected na ipapaquiz ni teacher?
Reflection, sir?
Yes,
Enumeration po.
Yes, can you state your name and then your answer?
Sir, Ellie Ray Rosel Tizon, sir.
Tizon, yes, Tizon.
Probably draw the process of, draw, sir.
Draw. So expected na galing sa learning objective ni teacher na ginawa na at the end of the lesson, the students should be able to enumerate the processes of photosynthesis. So ang ipapagawa ni teacher, magpapadraw si teacher ng process. Is that your answer?
Yes, draw and label, sir.
Draw and label. Okay, that is for Tizon. Another.
Marom Jan, sir. Pwede rin siyang essay type, sir.
Pwede din siyang essay type. Okay. Another? Meron pa yung sumagot kanina. Sino pa?
Yung enumeration po, pwedeng ipa-enumerate po niya yung about sa photosynthesis.
Enumerate. Okay. Enumeration. Okay. So, if titingnan natin yung lahat ng inyong sagot, saan kayo doon ang mas pinaka-fit na gagawin ni teacher?
For me, sir, na yung draw and label.
Draw and label.
Medyo
Another? Ano? Yes, yes,
ako din
Haji.
sir na ganun din.
Draw and label.
Ganun din. Yes sir.
Okay. Sige. If you're to look at the what you call this, the learning objective, you would notice that ginamit ni teacher ang word na enumerate, no? So, pag sinasabing enumerate, hindi naman sa lahat, no? Pag sinasabing enumerate, it is expected na kung ikaw yung sasagot ng quiz, no? Expected na ang gagawin ni teacher is magpa-enumerate sa teacher. Okay? So, wag lalayo, no? Perhaps, ang sabi ninyo, pwedeng maging essay. Yes, siguro pwede nating hanapan ng way na magiging essay siya in such a way that siguro ang pag-ask ng question, enumerate the different processes of photosynthesis and discuss, pwede siya. Pero medyo malayo sa gusto mong mangyari. Kasi ang sinabi kasi ng learning objective na yung estudyante daw at the end of the lesson, gusto mo na ang estudyante makapag-enumerate ng different processes of photosynthesis. So ang pinakamalapit doon na expected na gagawin ni teacher is, of course, ang sa quiz, lalabas sa quiz ay enumerate the 5 processes of what you call this, of photosynthesis. But then again, pwedeng maging draw and label, pero nakadepende yan sa instruction. That's the very important thing. And of course, the essay part, please make sure to construct the question na hindi siya lalayo sa enumerate. And that is correct. Okay? So, meaning to say, lahat kayo, or for those who are answering, you are the representative of the class perhaps, no? Alam ninyo kung ano yung dapat piliin na assessment tool, and that is very good. Okay. Next is letter A for attainable. Dito, children, as much as possible, yung gagawin ninyong learning objectives, dapat possible siya na magawa in a period, in a one-period class, or in a 60-minute class. Hindi pwedeng lalagpas. Sir, kasi hindi natin alam, sir, kung ano yung mangyayari sa classroom. That is correct. No? So there are really chances talaga na kahit plinano mo ng bongga yung lesson plan mo, pero pagdating mo sa klase, naka-estudyante kang mga badlungon kaayo, no? Kanang siguro parehas sa mga estudyante ko noon sa nag-practice teach ako na yung klase kahit nandoon ako sa loob ng klase, nasa I don't know of what is the Filipino term of nagtakyan, no? Sipa, yung sipa, yeah. They are doing that inside my class. My goodness, parang walang teacher. So, ang gagawin ni teacher, hindi pa talaga siya magsisimulang mag-discuss. Ang gagawin ko, sige kong pangasaba. So, ang 30 minutes karon nahurot og pangasaba, ang 30 minutes gamay na lang nga discussion. So, meaning to say, my lesson plan now, wala na ako siya na follow. Okay? And that is okay. Next, letter R, relevant. When we say relevant kasi, kung ano yung dapat na lesson mo, yun yung dapat na igagawa mo ng learning objective. Like for example, if your lesson is all about photosynthesis, do not include learning objectives na labas sa photosynthesis. No? So do not include, for example, since you're talking about photosynthesis and that is for plants, baka isali mo doon na number 1, identify the parts of the plant. No, wala na. No? So focus on photosynthesis. So that is what we call relevant. And of course, time-based, sabi ko nga, dapat alam natin yung length ng lesson plan natin. Make sure you have to make a lesson plan which is good for one period only. Okay. An objective is an intent communicated by a statement describing a proposed change in a learner. So, kung titingnan nyo siguro may mga subjects kayo na yung teacher, palagi talagang ginagawa ni teacher, before siya mag-discuss ng lesson, ang ginagawa niya is ipipresent muna yung tinatawag na learning outcomes or learning objectives. No? Kasi gusto ni teacher na alam ninyo na kung ano yung kahantungan ng discussion na ito. Okay? And then, the objectives also are proposal. Proposal namin yan sa inyo, mga children. Those are our proposal na, huy, no? Hoy, Tizon, gusto na ko nga at the end of the lesson, you are to define photosynthesis. No? O, hoy, kinsa man ni sa mga hoy dire. Di manawa ko mga pangalan ko na. Hoy, Jonabel, gusto na ko nga after na ko ma-discuss ang photosynthesis, maka-enumerate ka sa processes of photosynthesis. So, yun yung tono ng tinatawag natin na objectives, children. Those are our proposals to you. Okay? And then second bullet, clearly defined learning objectives guide the learner of what he is to be like when he has successfully completed a learning experience. Actually, yung tinatawag natin na learning objectives, ito yung expectations namin sa inyo. No? Expectations yan ng teacher na right after the discussion, ito yung makukuha ninyo. No? So those are our proposals again. Communicating your objectives to your students helps them focus their thinking and motivates them to participate in class. Again, the reason why si teacher, ipapakita muna niya yung learning outcomes or learning objectives niyo before siya mag-start ng klase is para maging directed kayo and then focus sa lesson. Kasi pag alam niyo yung learning objectives of that particular lesson, alam niyo kung saan kayo kukuha ng focus. No? So that is when it comes to learning objectives. And sometimes pa nga, ang gagawin ni teacher, i-discuss pa niya yung learning outcomes. Okay, next, teachers are responsible for delivering lessons that are planned, organized, and implemented based on the objectives that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So of course, the one who will write or construct your lesson plan is a teacher. And then si teacher din yung responsible to deliver the lesson. No? These should be flexible enough to provide room for the learners to make their own personal and independent connections. So ito yung sinabi ko na your lesson plan should be flexible kasi nga meron talagang hindi natin alam, hindi predictable kung ano ang mangyayari next meeting, no? So by the time you are constructing your lesson plan, make sure na yung gagawin mong lesson plan, alam mo kung paano siya i-troubleshoot. So ano pong ibig sabihin? Pag merong estudyante or merong section, siguro for example, no, yung lesson plan mo, hindi naman siya mag-vary. Yung lesson plan na gagawin mo, children, for example, meron kang section 1 at saka meron kang last section na section 20, yung lesson plan na gagamitin mo sa section 1 ay yan din ang gagamitin mo sa section 20. Hindi pwedeng ibabago, no? Kaya dapat yung structure ng lesson plan mo is flexible. Kasi nga, for example, ang section 1, bright gid kaayo. No, murag na ay part siguro sa imong lesson plan na hindi mo nagagawin. Kasi nga, ay, ang dali naka-catch up ng section 1 pagdating sa section 20. Okay? Kahit isang oras ka pang magnanga diha, yung mga estudyante, magnanga po na sila. No? Parang hindi nila alam kung ano yung ginagawa nila. So meaning to say, you really have to create a lesson plan in such a way na fair yung lesson plan. Hindi lang pwede na ang iniisip mo by the time you will be constructing your lesson plan, wag mo isipin lang yung marunong sa estudyante. You really have to think for all of your students and then of course, any type of learners. Okay, next is for the goals and objectives. Learning outcomes were previously called goals and objectives. For those students here who are done with CPE 105, alam ko na na-discuss na siguro ng teacher ninyo about goal and then objective. Ano yung kaibahan ng goals at saka objectives? Pag sinasabing goals, no, bigyan ko kayo ng example. Pag sinabing goals is my goal is to become a successful model. Okay. Wala gid in taon na iyang goal sa kinabuhi, no? Mahimo siyang successful model. Okay. So that is her goal, to become a successful model. Now, for you to become a successful model, ano yung gagawin mo? Kung sa naman ka, magpuyo ra ka sa iyong balay, matuhog ra ka, no? So matulog lang ka, mukaon ka sa inyong balay, wala kang gagawin. So ibibigay yan ng Panginoon sa iyo na maging successful model ka daw. You have to set some objectives. Okay? So your goal is to become a successful model. Therefore, you have to create your sets of objectives. So ano to? Siguro kung gusto mo maging successful model, kailangan mo talagang ano yan, kailangan mong gawin ng lahat para maging successful model. So first, siguro gusto kong mag-enroll sa eskwelahan na nagtuturo ng modeling. Meron ba? For example. And then right after that, gusto kong magpa-slim. Okay. Gusto kong, next objective, gusto kong maging maputi. No? Para mapansin ako ng lahat. Okay. Next objective, gusto kong matangos ang ilong ko para mas maganda yung mukha ko. Yes. Next objective, I have to wear elegant clothes para mas mapansin ako. Okay. That is your next objective. And the next objective, siguro kailangan kong mag-join ng pageant. Dito muna sa Purok namin. Okay? So, nag-join ka ng Miss Purok 2020. Nanalo ka, yes. Your next objective now is to join beauty pageant sa, sa barangay level naman. So, sumali ka sa Barangay Kiwalan 2020. O ka na siya. So, nidaaw na pud ka. Your next objective now is to join beauty pageant in Iligan City. Okay, naka-join ka ng beauty pageant sa Iligan City, yes, nanalo ka ulit. And then, gusto mong maging commercial model. Okay, so nag-commercial model ka, you applied for an agency, and so on and so forth. And because of those objectives, nakamit mo yung goal mo. Okay, the same din yan, children, if you wanted to become a successful teacher. Of course, if you wanted to become a successful teacher, an influencer, kasi nga yung mga ating mga yung mga content creators natin, our TikTokers, our YouTubers, they are not the only who are to be labeled as influencers, no? Ang mga influencers, these are also teachers. We also label them as teachers, no? Influencers give kayo on teachers. Kay nga naman, teachers can build the future of the students, di ba? Teachers can build or perhaps can destruct, no? Or disrupt a future of a student, for example. Okay? So, influencer kayo ang teacher. So, if you wanted to become an influencer teacher, a role model teacher, you have to strive hard. Ang strive hard doon natin ipapakita sa objectives natin, no? Magtarong kitag eskwela, first objective. Dapat nindot kita itong grado, yes, no? Despite of the fact that wala tayong makain, wala tayong ganyan, but there are a lot of ways for you to go to school, no? If you really wanted to, no? And then to pass, to graduate with flying colors, and then to take the board exam, and then you have to apply to the DepEd, mag-master's degree, mag-PhD, and that's the way that you can actually commit yourself to the so-called successful teacher. But it doesn't mean na kung gusto mo may mong successful teacher, dapat gid ka mag-master's degree or mag-PhD. Nakadepende yan sa tinatawag natin ng commitment and then of course love sa profession. Okay. Next, they are made up of particular knowledge, skill, or behavior that every learner is expected to demonstrate. Again, yung goals at saka objectives namin, ito yung proposal namin for you to do, no? And that is the expected output namin at the end of the lesson. Okay, so let's try to look at the differences between goals and objectives. Again, when we say goals, ang goal is a very big picture, and below sa goal, yung tinatawag natin na objectives. Okay. So yung goals are general statements about what schools are expected to accomplish. So meron tayong MSU goals. Okay. And then of course, objectives. Objective is an intent communicated by a statement describing a proposed change in a learner. So, the proposed change in the learner siya. So, dito na bababa yung sa estudyante, objective at tinatawag. So, sa goals children na part, we have two here. No? Meron tayong institutional intended learning outcomes. Okay? And then we also have here program intended learning outcomes. And then sa objectives, which is more specific, this is course intended learning outcomes and then intended learning outcomes. Okay. So, let's try to picture this out. Let's try to picture MSU main campus. Yes. Ang MSU, meron siyang tinatawag na intended learning outcomes. In the language of your goals, no, meron tayong goals and objectives. And then right after that, yung MSU main, marami siyang colleges. Yung colleges natin, iba't ibang colleges, iba't ibang programs din yung in-offer. No? Sa College of Education, the program that we are offering is, of course, for education. No? Therefore, ang program natin, ang language ng program natin is for education. No? Probably to produce highly competitive teachers, somewhat like that, no? Teachers. Pero children, our program, learning outcomes, hinugot natin yan sa institutional intended learning outcomes. Sir, meron pong connection? Yes, there must be a connection. No? And then right after that, itong tinatawag natin na course intended learning outcomes, for example, is subject. So ano po ibig sabihin ng course? Ito may subject or yung kurso? No? Siguro ito, this is your subject. No? Di ba sa subject natin, meron tayong learning outcomes, parang general bitaw? I do not know if siguro merong nagbigay sa inyo ng ano ba yan? Ng syllabus, for example. And then makikita ninyo na meron siyang general objectives. Okay? So when we say general objectives, that is the objectives of the whole course. Pero sa baba ng mga tinatawag natin na general objectives, sa specific topics, meron din tayong tinatawag na objectives din. Tama? At ang tawag natin sa kanila ay intended learning outcomes. Okay. Ito na yung gagawin na natin. Like for example, ang topic is all about photosynthesis. Yung tinatawag natin na ILO, yun na yung enumerate the processes of photosynthesis, describe the process of photosynthesis, define photosynthesis, yun na yun. Okay? And then if you are to look at there, meron siyang connection galing sa taas hanggang sa baba. Okay. Next, graduate attributes of 21st century learner. Okay. Ito yung dapat na makuha ng mga graduates natin in the 21st century education. Diba? You are labeled as 21st century learners. Sa 21st century learners, I'm sure bugbog na ito sa inyo. Yung mga kinsa to yung mga tiguang na dire no sa education niya dire no, mga third year naman siguro ni sila, mga tiguang naman kini sila, alam na nila yung topic ng 21st century skills, no, siguro na topic na ito ng mga teachers ninyo, at alam niyo that the 21st century skills are very challenging, no. Dapat daw ang isang estudyante na very creative, very ganyan, very ganito, very ganyan. Okay. Why do we have to create an aspect of 21st century learners? It is because children, the generation is very difficult na. No? Kanang itong ginatawag na itong competition. Nagkataas ang atong generation, nagka-different ang atong generation. The competition is very clear. No? So, meaning to say, kung wala dyan kayo nahibalaan, mura dyan kang ma-out sa kalibutan, you will be outcasted, somewhat like that. Okay? So, if you're to try to look at the figure na akong ipakita diri children, we have the term aims, goals, and objectives. So, ang aims, pag sinasabing aims, children, siya yung nasa pinakamataas, and then goals, and then objectives. Kung titignan niyo yung example na ginawa natin, sinulat dito, yung education natin is based on constitution. Nanggaling yun sa kanya. No? So, according to here, Section 2, Article 14 of the 1987 Constitution, this is the fundamental legal, that is not legal, that is legal basis of education in the Philippines. So, itong mga legal basis of education sa Pilipinas, ito yung hinugutan ng tinatawag natin na institutional or program goals. No? Siguro, dito kumukuha ng ng hugot ang vision mission ng MSU. No? Kinuha yan dito sa constitutional aims. Kaya nga, sa mga may nagbabalak dito gumawa ng eskwelahan, no? Kailangan talaga ninyong tingnan yung mga objectives ninyo. Dapat nakasaad or it is connected sa constitutional aims natin, sa constitution, down to your school, no? And then down to your program and classroom. Okay. So this is now the graduate attributes of the 21st century learner. Next. Okay. So on objective specifications. Di ba, I told you that in my example kanina sa lesson plan ko, there are 3 learning objectives. Sir, dapat po ba 3? When you are to write learning objectives, specifically, considered man kayo na mga first-timers, no? You have to create 3 learning objectives based on the 3 main groups of learning or domains. First is cognitive domain. Second is the psychomotor. And then the third one is affective. Sir, bakit po dapat 3? Kasi nga, di ba, ang sabi ko, ayaw nating mag-produce ng estudyante na intelligent lang. Ayaw nating makapag-produce ng estudyante na buutan lang. No? Gusto natin holistic yung estudyante. No? Intelligent at the same time may puso. Okay. So we have here 3 domains. We have cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Please take note of the table, no? Here. Cognitive is for the head, to nurture the mind in order to know. Affective is for the heart. Kasi nga, when we say affective, it talks about feelings and emotions. No? Hindi lang pag-ibig. More po pag-ibig, broken-hearted, mga ganyan ang nasa isip, no? Wag muna. Affective is for the heart, to nurture the spirit in order to love. So this is love, no? Not to love your boyfriend or girlfriend, not to love your life. No? You have to first love yourself before you can love somebody. Anyway, that's the psychomotor. Psychomotor is for the body to move the limbs in order to serve. So cognitive is for the knowledge. Psychomotor is for action. No? Kung ano yung malalaman, i-act out niya. And then for the affective part is feelings and emotions and acceptance. Okay, so that is for affective. So those are the 3 main groups or domains in our learning objectives, and you have to create really the 3. No? Pero children, I have to say that meron talagang lesson plan na isa lang yung isusulat ng learning objective. Ito yung isa sa mga bago kong hindi pa naman bago, sinugay na, no? During my stay in MSUIIT, merong isang teacher doon na nag-suggest or recommended that you can actually write one learning objective, very specific learning objective. Merong question doon, sir, how can you make sure na lahat ng learning groups or main groups or domains ay makukuha natin sa isang what you call this, learning objective lang? Ang sabi naman niya, you can actually integrate that during your lesson. No? So, magyayari yan sa buong klase mo. No? Makikita yan. Anyway. And I want you to meet the 3 types of learners. Gusto kong malaman ninyo na ang nasa huli ay yun yung plano at gustong i-produce ng basic education even in the tertiary level ng mga learners. No? The first type of learner is the big head, tiny heart learner. No? Bright ka, pero wa pug kay puso. No? O sa Bisaya pa, wa kay kasing-kasing. Bright ka, but ngilad kag batasan. May attitude ka, girl. No? No? Intelligent, but oh my goodness, yung attitude hindi nakakain ng aso. Parang ganyan. No? We really don't want to create a student or a graduate with excellent academic standing who later assumes prominent positions in the government and uses his intelligence for corruption to get rich or worse, perverts the idea of conflict or war. Ayaw natin yan. Gusto natin na intelligent at the same time, mabuti yung kalooban. No? Busilak yung puso. Parang ganyan. Next, the next type of learner we have is The big heart, tiny mind learner. Buutan, pero hindi man gid siya kabalo eh. Bahala pag 1 plus 1, di man gid siya kasabot. Saan man gina siya, no? Pero buutan kaayo, di ba? Pero according to the description, it is also not good to pass or promote a learner because he is kind, nice, or behaves well in your class. No, this is the saddest thing of being a teacher. Siguro, no, saddest thing ba? Saddest at the same time challenging part because mind you, children, in the College of Education, we are really teaching you how to do this and how to do that and then how to ano ba, how to approach this and how to approach that, somewhat like that, no? And you don't have to do this and do this, no? Instead. Pero by the time you will be in the Department of Education, in public school, magiging back to zero, parang magiging back to zero yung learnings ninyo. Kaya nga, children, by the time na kung ano ba yung i-impose ng mga teachers during your college years, no? During your college of education years, dapat you really have to accept it, no? Because magagamit ninyo yan by the time you will be in the field. Kasi iba yung picture talaga ng public school. Very different, no? Let me tell you, our description sa second type of learner is very bad. Dili yun pwede, no? Dili na to pwede na kailangan ipasa yung estudyante na buutan. Pero, ang nangyayari sa public school is ganyan, no? Very sad siya, very frustrating because the the description of the second type of learner is really true. Nangyayari yan. I myself, ginagawa ko siya during my DepEd years, no? During my stay sa DepEd, no? Kahit very short lang yan kasi nga natagap dito sa MSU, very short lang pero as I swear, grabe siya ka-frustrating. Ang sabi kasi, dili gud siya, grade 9 gud akong gitudluan, no? Grade 9 students. And then, by the time I will be discussing the lesson, wa gyud nakasabot. Yung mga estudyante, nagnganga ang mga estudyante, nagsiga ang mata. No? Mag-discuss ka dito. So, ang gagawin ko talaga, para naman maging lively yung klase, ay mura kong nasa comedy bar. No? Para ako nagsa-stand-up comedian. Parang yun yung show na ginagawa ko every day, every klase. No? Namamaos ka pa kasi you really have to shout. Kasi kayo may estudyante, ang ingay, yung sa labas, wala pang klase yung kabilang classroom, ang isa dito ka babae, nagsyagit ang babae dito kay ginagta na siya minarang bitaw, no? Very typical, no? Kasi ginagawa natin yan during our high school years, no? Ngayon, na-experience ko talaga siya. It's very frustrating and at the same time, very challenging. Ang ginawa ko, kasi meron akong estudyante nga, absent to siya, and kung naapod na siya, mura na po siya gwala. Kanang, by the time meron kaming activity or siguro quiz, mura ang yung score 1-0, parang wala siyang pake. Pero the good thing there is grabe kabuutan sa estudyante. No? Matinahuron, sabi sa matinahuron, no? Meaning to say, very respectful. No? Hi sir, good morning sir, parang ganyan. Hi sir, unsa akong matabang? Something like that. And then, siya yung estudyante na maasahan mo, no? Dong, ano sa diri dong? Dong, alasa sa tungkuan, dong. Kaya na naman sa DepEd, di ba, no? Yung teachers natin sa high school na inuutusan man tayo, di ba, no? Dong, paisang sunod dito, dong. Primitive, hindi mo siya matawag. No? You can actually, you know, makakatulong talaga siya. Dong, lampaso, ining classroom, kaya pwedeng abuga. Dong, pagsagom mong tubig. So, naay may nanang may estudyante. Because the students behaves well in the class, and then you don't want that student to retain in your class, mo na ngayon mo siya i-promote, ipapasar gudi mo siya. Kung boto na ang ihang grado, abot og 40 or 30 ko yung i-compute, wag yun kaabot og 75 or 75%. Kaya ba, 75 man ang passing sa kuan, sa tawag niya, 75 ba? Oh, no, 75% or 50. Wag yun kaabot, pwedeng layo Pero since ang bata, buutan man, so imo siyang ipapasar. Okay? So, the bad thing here, children, is that ang problema kasi dito, by the time na we will allow that, the students really will suffer in the future. Kasi nga, let us understand that the picture or the status quo of our generation is very different from the previous generation. No, nga bahala pag wala kay trabaho, kabalo lang ka manugbag diha, kung nagsa manipakyaw, eh madato ka. No? Pero which different man ngayon. The competition is very clear, no, with this generation. Okay. Now, sa last type of learner, this is the holistic learner. Ng mga estudyante na gusto nating makapag-produce ng estudyante na kahit hindi masyadong intelligent pero alam niya and then may puso din siya. Okay? So, the holistic learner, as teachers, it is our mission to mold each learner to become balanced individual, capable of using his knowledge for a noble cause. No? Hence, the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains are essential for holistic teaching to produce holistic learners, the so-called thinking and feeling being. In-include ko talaga itong quotation na to kasi ang ganda. Thinking and feeling being. Okay. Very challenging. If you are to look at the third description, no, challenging yun kaya mo yung teacher because you have to mold each learner. Unya, kaya mo ito kang public school, 50 man ka mga estudyante. Meron ka mga estudyante na 50 ka buok, no? Unya, yung 50 students mo inside the classroom, iba't ibang istorya yan. Yes, children, no? Iba't ibang istorya niya. Ikaw po maestra, lang yung problema sa balay. No? Nag-away mo sa imong bana, wa kay kwarta, wa kay bugas, wa kay pangbayad sa kuryente. Ang daming problema ni teacher. But by the time papasok si teacher ng classroom, lahat ng problema ay iiwan ni teacher. Mo bitaw na the teachers are great pretenders. No? Grabe yun ka-artista ang mga teachers. Grabe yun ka-noble ang job sa teacher. Okay. Bahala pag grabe yung away dito sa inyong balay. Sa, no? For example, you're a married teacher, ang dami mong problema sa bahay, hindi mo siya pwedeng dalhin during your class. No? In-anak ka pretender and teacher and very challenging. That is why, really, although I have a plan, gusto ko mag-change ng career, no? I really wanted to be a doctor. That's the reason why I took up biology. But then again, during the years that I've been staying to the biology education na field, doon ko nalaman yung noble cause of being a teacher. No, that really, no, we really have to mold each learner. Unya, 50 ka mo yung estudyante, unya, ang imo pa yung section na handles kay pulo or 10 sections. So meaning to say, na kay mga 500 kabok, ay ko, Diyos ko, no? You really have to mold them. For you to mold your students, you really have to understand each of them. Yan yung ginawa ko sa DepEd. Kasi hindi ko talaga maiintindihan yung estudyante children. No? I do not know if I did share this, no, because I am having my frustrations. Nagka-anxiety attack pa dyan ko atong first week na ako sa DepEd. Kasi nga, yung na-imagine ko, although alam ko naman talaga kung ano yung picture ng public school, but hindi ko na-imagine na yun yung grabe yung totoong picture talaga ng public school. That is why yung first week ko is a very frustrating week. But the strategy pala for you to understand the students is you really have to know their backgrounds. No? Alamin mo na iba't ibang estudyante, meron din silang iba't ibang istorya. Okay? And because you knew the story, their stories, that's the time that you will appreciate them more. And that's the time that you will understand them more. Pero, again, it takes time. No, it will take time, children. Imagine, ano ba yung klase ko? Meron akong klase na maabot ng 50 plus. No, ang dami nila. And then each of them kailangan mong arugain. Imagine that. No? That is why right after a day, yung pag-uwi ko sa bahay, my God, sasakay ako ng bus kasi magbabas ako from Dapitan City to Dipolog City. No, magkalapit lang naman yung city na yan. So, ang only mode of transportation is bus lang talaga patong Dipolog. By the time talaga na makapasok ako sa bus, ay parang kinuha yung espiritu ko. No? I really have to rest. And then I really have to ponder, my God, the day is very exhausting. No? yung energy mo makukuha talaga lahat. But then again, it is very challenging for us teachers. No, it's very nice. Okay. So I think we have to end the discussion here para naman medyo the same sa ibang section, no? So our discussion will end it here, and then I will be posting the recorded video doon sa Google Classroom natin. At the same time, I will be posting an activity or an assessment sa Google Classroom. I will just inform you.
Sa YouTube din,
Okay?
sir?
I think it's my dear, yes. Sa YouTube din. Is that your question? Hello? Yes, I will be, sige, I think na-gets ko yung the word YouTube. Yes, I will be posting it also sa YouTube natin. Okay. So, if you have questions, you just have to raise your hand or type it sa chat box. Ayun, may nag-raise ng hand. Sino itong nag-raise ng hand? Is it? Sanali lang, meron ko i-try. Okay. Lower hand. Wala nag-raise ng hand. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Wala?
Wala, sir.
Everyone, wala. Okay.
Wala
Okay.
po.
Okay. Wala dyan susunod na pantay lang.
Wala, sir.
Okay. Okay, if you don't have any questions, you can now leave the class. And then again, I will be posting details sa Google Classroom natin. See you next meeting, children.
Sir, excuse muna, sir.
Yes,
Sir, di ba
yes,
i-post mo yan siya, sir, sa YouTube? Then,
yes,
if
dear.
may ano, i-question kami na pwede mag-comment na lang dun sa YouTube mo, sir.
Yes, pwede. Sige.
Kasi sir na ano, may
Pero
mga
I,
parts sir na nawawala ko dito sir sa meeting natin sir. So baka dun ko na lang itingnan kung may mga question ako sir. Pwede sir?
okay, sige. Pwede. Sige, sige, pwede naman, dear. Okay.
Thank you
Or
sir.
siguro ano na lang kaya, please message me na lang sa Facebook, perhaps. Kasi ang ginagawa ko sa YouTube kasi nilalak ko yung comment section.
Okay po sir. Sige po
Okay, so
sir.
you just have to PM me. Okay?
Okay sir, salamat sir.
Okay, sige. Again, if you don't have any questions, you can now exit the class and see you next meeting.
Thank you
Thank you
sir.
so much,
Bye,
everyone.
Thank you,
sir.
sir. Bye,
Yes,
Bye
sir.
sir.
enjoy the rest
Bye,
of your
sir.
day.
Thank you
Bye,
Goodbye.
sir.
sir.
Thank you sir.
Thank you also.
Bye sir.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.